Marijuana guy.
Alright, we're back again with another stacked event. Looking at the fight card, I noticed a pattern that there's a lot of grappler versus striker matchups. From the early prelims, you have the grappler Ludovic Klein versus the striker Devontae Smith. Ludovic has some decent hands too, but he's primarily a grappler. All the way to the main card between Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. I'm gonna start with what's most likely gonna be the grappling showcase of the entire card, Tagir Ulanbekov versus Tim Elliott. This fight can essentially be boiled down to orthodox versus unorthodox. Tim Elliott is extremely awkward, he switches stances a lot, he will throw a lot of techniques out there. He's very big for the division, but outside of his teeps and side kicks, he unfortunately doesn't actually use that length very well. His boxing is pretty bad, especially defensively, though he is okay offensively even though he loads up and telegraphs a lot of what he does. On the feet, his best techniques are without a doubt his teeps or push kicks and his calf kicks. Really where he shines is in his grappling. He has some solid wrestling and top control. That's actually where he works the most conventionally. He is good at controlling and riding the opponent, and on the ground he's extremely offensive, constantly looking for submissions, attacking the neck, cranking the shoulder. Most of the time it fails, but when it works, it works. Tagir Ulanbekov on the other hand is very conventional. He does everything by the book, doesn't move very much, instead choosing to stand in front of the opponent and go tit for tat. He has a solid jab, straight and left hook. Also has some decent leg kicks, but his biggest problem on the feet is his defense. He's very hittable and doesn't move his head, nor does he block very well. He also has a tendency to move straight back when he's getting pressured, which could be really bad against an extremely pressuring fighter like Tim Elliott. But just like Elliott, his true strength is in his grappling. He comes from Dagestan and trains with Khabib's gang, so he's grown up with that Sambo grappling style. The one thing I've noticed is that he isn't quite as great at chain wrestling as a lot of those guys are, and he's also far more willing to stand and strike with the opponent. That's not to say he doesn't have great takedowns, because he does. He has fantastic single legs, double legs and mat returns, but his favorite and most effective technique is the outside leg reap, or kosote gake as it's known in judo. The way he sets that up and executes it is just a thing of art.
6 times 2 is lemon.
The deciding factor between these guys is the grappling, and without a doubt, Tagir is the better grappler. Tim Elliott has horrible takedown defense, and while his offense might pose some problems for Ulanbekov, he is far better at defending and counter wrestling than Elliott, even if it hits the mat. So I'm gonna go with Ulanbekov by a decision. Then we get to my most anticipated fight, as Bryce Mitchell returns to take on the Derek Brunson of the featherweight division. Now, the blueprint for beating Barboza has been laid out for quite some time. Pressure and corral him with volume boxing to limit his usage of kicks, back him up to the cage and wrestle. At lightweight, this was a very highly effective strategy, but to Barboza's credit, his takedown defense has massively improved since moving down, mostly because his opponents are smaller and just not as good of wrestlers as the ones he fought at 155. But regardless, pressure really is the key to beating Barboza. Going tit for tat with him from a distance is nightmarishly difficult. Only Giga Chikadze was able to do that. You have to back him up, keep throwing hands in his face, and be willing to take one to give two. Because Barboza really doesn't have the best boxing. Again, to his credit, it has improved. He hits much harder at 145 and he's a lot tighter with his punches, especially his counter hooks. But his defense is still lacking and he has a tendency to just get overwhelmed by volume. That being said, I don't know if Mitchell is really going to go that route. Mitchell is just a one-shot fighter. He'll throw a side kick, a hook kick, an overhand. He very rarely puts combinations together in a way that you have to against Barboza. Also, he usually starts his fights by pressuring with kicks and feints until he gets you to the cage, or you try to enter in on him, at which point he'll dive for your legs. And the guy is a fantastic wrestler, great single legs, double legs, mat returns, trips against the cage. He chain wrestles pretty well, and on top of that he carries that cardio and strength with him through 15 minutes easily. On the ground, being a BJJ grappler, he uses a lot more BJJ than traditional American wrestling techniques. He doesn't leg ride, instead he stays heavy on the opponent, controlling the legs very well with his own and maintaining good wrist control. If they stand back up, he'll promptly sit them back down and get back to work or try to get a submission. And off his back, he's extremely dangerous, very good at setting up the armbar and triangle. Now, can Bryce Mitchell enforce his grappling on Barboza? In my opinion, no. I will say that Barboza has a somewhat predictable defense to takedowns. Out in the open, it's almost impossible to get him down because he's just so fast to sprawl. But against the cage, his main defense is that underhook. He's very strong with it, so he digs it deep and tries to work his way out. Obviously, he has strong hips and good balance, but we've seen it again and again that once fighters get past that underhook, the takedown is all there for the taking. And I think Mitchell could succeed with that, though that's contingent upon him not getting caught on the way in, which I do see happening eventually. So for my prediction, I'm gonna go with Edson Barboza by a second round TKO. It's a super competitive fight, but I think Edson has just faced the style so many times, and also I don't see Mitchell being able to pressure him back like other fighters have been able to without getting caught by something big. They've switched his opponent up twice now, and I've had to re-record and re-edit twice. So I'm just gonna kind of breeze past this one. Renato Moicano poses very little problems to Dos Anjos. He's a good technical striker, he possesses some power, and he's great on the ground. But Dos Anjos does all of that and better. He's a 4th degree black belt in BJJ. He's gone 5 rounds with Leon Edwards. He's beaten Donald Cerrone, Pettis, Henderson. If RDA is stupid and chooses to keep the fight on the feet, this could be very competitive. But he's not gonna do that. He's gonna shoot for the legs and he's gonna grind out another decision. That being said, all the props in the world for Moicano for taking this opportunity and giving us a fight. I really don't understand why Islam didn't take it, since he's stylistically a nightmare matchup for RDA, but probably he couldn't be bothered to cut the weight. Why he or his management even announced that he would in the first place baffles me, but whatever. And we've arrived at the main event. I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand how people can be so hyped for this fight. Like, I understand they have a very long history with each other, but first of all, the rivalry feels 100% contrived. But more importantly, this fight is just gonna be a standard Colby Covington affair. He's gonna dive for the legs, he's gonna break Jorge down with the chain wrestling, making him carry his weight and ride him until he gasses out. Jorge needs one big lucky strike to put Colby out within the first 10 to 15 minutes, or he is guaranteed to lose. The problem is we've seen Colby go 9 rounds with Usman. He got knocked down twice in both fights and hit with many bigger shots and never went out. To the contrary, actually, in the rematch, Colby managed to rally and arguably won the 4th and 5th rounds. Now Jorge is pretty fast with his jabs and his kicks. He's a slick counter striker and he's a savage in the clinch. Besides his physical advantages, like his explosiveness, his biggest advantage is that he's so well-rounded, and that makes it very hard for fighters to completely shut him down. The only fighters that have been able to do that have been specialists like Kamaru Usman, Wonderbread Thompson, Demian Maia, and what do you know? Colby Covington. He dominated him from pillar to post in this shitty apartment. I don't think there's anything that Jorge can do that will stop Colby from doing what he does best. And for the record, Jorge is a very competent wrestler, but it's nothing that Colby has never seen or dealt with before. Unless Jorge is able to find or create a big opening for a strike and generate the amount of power needed to put Covington out for good, Colby will win this fight by a decision. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I have another big video coming out sometime next week.
And make sure you're dabbing on them haters.
And I will see you all next time.
Lily Puppy! And living there is the Lily Pup! I'll go there soon with Mr. Bubbles! Tail to top! And if we find no turtle lammy, perhaps we'll dine on ham and jammy! If we can't find the Lily Pup!